Well, I'm a C6, C7 quad. I've been in a wheelchair for 20 years. I do minimal amount of cooking. Most of my stuff is done in the microwave just for um, the there's always that risk that I can burn myself. Um, with my paralysis, I have pretty good feeling on the inside of my arms, but the outside is numb. So that it when I do get burned, that is typically where the injury occurs.
Yeah. Well, the reason, I mean, my wife is friends with you on Facebook. That's why I saw the post that you had made about a burn. That's why I decided to ask you if you would be willing to talk about your cooking. And I didn't actually
Yeah,
know how much cooking you did or not. But um,
yeah.
so when you say 6'7", a C6'7", for people that don't know what that is, does that mean you have? Um, could you explain, if you don't mind? Like, does that mean can you lean forward? Do you have abdomen and back ability, or?
I can lean forward and back, but I don't have the trunk control that lower injuries do. So it's very easy for me to lose balance. I have limited strength. Um, I don't really have use of my triceps very well. So, and then, also, like, I'll show you here. This is my hand. Like, I can't move each individual finger. My left hand does better than my right. So my grip is limited too.
And when you say grip, like your actual fingers have lost motor function, but you're using your flexing of your it's an
Right.
it's the flex of
Yeah.
the wrist
I
that
had some Yeah, I had some surgeries that gave me somewhat of a grip that can help, in the normal things during the. But as far as moving each individual finger and stuff, I don't really have that capability.
okay. So basically, you're saying you just heat things up in the microwave because cooking, and I guess we will talk about that injury, the burn that I saw the post about. That was when you tried to cook.
Yes, I was using a particular pot. It's one of the old ones. They don't really have like the rubber around the handle and stuff. It was metal. And when I went to my grip going like this is better. So I picked it up to move it. And on the outside of my hand there, it is where it burned.
So you were heating something up in a pot on the stove top
On the, yeah,
burner,
on the stove top, yeah.
and when you
Uh-huh.
lifted it up from the handle, holding the handle was hot and it burned your hand.
Yes, and
That's even
I
more
didn't even
serious
know
than
it until probably a couple of hours after.
that's even
Yeah,
more serious than I thought, because you were
yeah,
actually holding the handle. I thought you had burned yourself on a part that you're not supposed to be touching. You were actually touching the handle and still got burned.
yeah.
You couldn't tell.
Yes, there was even once. It's like I was at Burger King in Ohio, and I got hot chocolate, and I got third-degree burns on my hands because I don't feel on the palms where I got burned.
Yeah. So let you explain. Is there any equipment that you use? Any equipment that's adaptive or assistive
Not
technology?
Yeah, not really. I have a chair that will elevate in the air. So that helps me reach some things in the kitchen. But as far as um, adaptive equipment, no, I don't really do much cooking. So
Okay. Do you live? Do
that's
you
something I'm not really looking into a whole lot.
do you live on your own?
No, I live with family.
Okay. So it would be different if you were like
Yes.
totally by yourself. So your family helps out, or do you have staff
Yeah.
that helps? So your family does.
No, family helps. Um, I've been working from home since March, so during the day I do my own fixing of my food and that sort of thing, which is mostly either microwave or something that doesn't require a whole lot. So
Okay, so can you explain that process? Like what you must use something that you have limited use of hand, or I guess I would say limitations in your hands, so you're not able to use your hands totally, but you're able to maneuver the containers that food are in and stuff like that. So is there anything adaptive about the stuff
yeah.
that you're using, or do you use a special kind?
Um, let's see. Like sometimes I'll make ramen noodles. So I know that and I do that in the microwave too. So I know that I need a bowl that is deep and that kind of has a handle on the side. That way I can grip it without having to hold the bowl like this because I know I'm be more likely to burn myself if I was to hold the sides. Um,
Especially since there's hot
sometimes
liquid
I'll
in it, hot liquid that we could
right.
pour out of it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, sometimes I'll if I'm heating something up that doesn't have that type of handle, I'll put it on a plate that would be easier for me to grip instead of the hot container. Um,
Is there anything in your kitchen that's modified about the kitchen, like roll under counters or sink or stove or even the buttons on the
no,
front of the stove? Okay. And
no. The way I'm able to do that is I pull up right next to it, and then I'm able to lean over and do that sort of stuff. I just have to be aware, like especially with the stove because it's not in the front. Um, I just have to be aware of where my clothing is so it doesn't catch on fire. Um, and my arms to make sure it doesn't hit the burners and that sort of thing. Yeah. What I do, I hang on to one side of my chair with my right arm because I have a better grip with my left. I'll lean over, and then with my chair elevated in the air, I'm able to reach it. Now, if it was still just, lowered all the way down, it wouldn't work as well. So,
because your arm is reaching so close to the hot burners,
right.
right? But
Yeah.
elevated up, you're able to
Sometimes
reach
I can,
over.
yeah, those long spoons that you would use to like stir stuff or dip things out of a container and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
I can also use those to turn the knob off. So that I've come up with my own, I guess, adaptive equipment with
Uh-huh.
that way. Turning it on, I don't think be I would be able to deal with that because you have to be able to push the knob in. Sorry,
Okay.
but turn it off. It does pretty well. I looked into building a house a few years ago, and there were some things that I was going to look into getting. And one was going to be an oven that was in the wall rather than just a regular, oven that you have like, it in that way it could be elevated to be to my level. Like now I've never used the oven. And that's just because if I was to lean over and try to pick up something that was weighted and then trying to get back up without spilling it on myself, that would just be a disaster waiting to happen.
Because maybe just by taking this class, people might learn, you know what, maybe cooking is not necessarily a great idea, or I can only cook if there's someone with me, or, things like that. So maybe this is just about teaching people that kind of thing. And I think even with the range, even if it's at the level, you're still talking about bubbling melted cheese with liquid. And if that topples over on top of your lap, that's the kind of things that scare me.
Yeah. The day that I got burned, what I was actually cooking was macaroni noodles. So there was all the hot water in there. So one thing that I do whenever I'm cooking that, I get one of the slotted spoons, and I had my bowl sitting right next to it. So after I turn it off, I'll get the slotted spoon and I dip out as much of the noodles as I can. And then, luckily, our stovetop has a counter that is connected to it that will lead all the way over to the sink. So I put my hand on the handle and then I will pull it over all the way over to the sink. So that way I don't have to worry about lifting it up, losing my grip, and then spilling all that hot water all over me. When I looked at that, I think doing as much exercise as possible is probably going to help with that. You know, people who are in wheelchairs, and I think in particular, those that use power chairs are more likely to gain the weight just because, you know, we can't exercise as much as a normal person would. So I think everything is good in moderation. I'm not no diet expert, that is for sure. But I think if you pay attention to what you're eating and the types of foods, and you can always seek out advice from, any medical professional who can. They'll tell you to stay away from starches, which, I love. They'll tell you to stay away from, the red meat, the sweets, and that sort of thing. But I think anything done in moderation is fine. But as far as diabetes, that's something that I guess all of us with a spinal cord injury just needs to pay attention to and that sort of thing.